there are some scenes in this film that made me curl up into a ball and watch through splayed fingers.
New in theaters, at least in New York and Los Angeles, and terribly timely, is the French film Happening.
This is a French abortion drama, which unfortunately could not be more relevant these days.
Faites quelque chose. Vous ne pouvez pas me demander ça. Toute personne qui vous aiderait risque de finir en prison et vous avec.
Several of you guys asked us on our news segment earlier this week, why didn't you talk about this leaked opinion from the Supreme Court that would overturn Roe versus Wade? This is a good opportunity for us to do that very thing. We want to. Yeah. We should and we want to. So this movie, unfortunately, happened to be already coming out right about now, so it's more relevant than ever, and it's excellent. So it sounds like a dreadful prospect to go see a French drama about abortion, but this is beautifully acted and really expertly shot. Yeah. Audrey Diwan directed it, and it's based on a novel by Annie Ernaux, based on her own experiences. It's about a young girl. She's not young, actually. She's 23 years old. She's a college student in France in the early 60s. Her name is Anne. She's played by Anamaria Vartolomei, who is just fantastic. She has that thing that you cannot stop watching on screen. She's beautiful, but she's also got that magnetic presence, but she's also got, I don't know, like a swagger about her. And this movie asks a lot of her.
She's in like every scene, right?
Yeah. And quite frequently they are really, really long takes.
Yeah.
Long single takes. But she's a young woman in college. She's clearly brilliant. She has these big dreams and she gets pregnant. And so the film follows her and it marks time in these title cards, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, as she tries to figure out how to get an abortion, which at this point in time in France is illegal. So she runs the risk of, being thrown in jail if she's able to do this successfully. If she tries to do it on her own, she runs a risk of severely injuring herself, damaging her body permanently or worse. Also, she happens to be at a place in time where there's like this really judgy slut shaming and like puritanical sort of prejudice among even her own best friends, her own best girlfriends, who perhaps have also had sex, but they're super judgy of her. And so she doesn't even really have anybody that she can talk to about this. She is stoic and yet very charismatic. She is really complicated. She is constantly saying like, I'll figure it out. I'll handle it. And the camera follows her around in a way that reminded me of the Dardennes. Like it follows her from behind a lot of the time as you see her forging her own path where there isn't one, and doing so confidently and doing so with some fear. There are some scenes in this film that made me curl up into a ball and watch through splayed fingers and talk to the screen. Like I'm just like, oh God, oh no.
No.
Don't know. And I just, it's visceral, it's physical, it's visceral, and it's excellent. And it's hard to watch, but it is really necessary.
Yeah, I remember that movie Son of Saul a few years back.
Yes.
And it's not the similar kind of framing in terms of like in that film, the lead character is always in the middle of the frame and things are going on around him. But the way that they shoot so that Anne is with people, but at the same time sort of lost in her own thoughts. And, because she's got this horrible secret and she's trying to figure out what her options are and how she's going to get through it. And so she'll be like out, sitting on the grass with her two best friends. And they're like all presumably studying for their big exams that are coming up. But like the way that the frame is set up, that Anne is lost in her own, like, terror and trying to figure out how this thing goes. Whenever abortion is banned, it doesn't mean that abortions magically don't happen. It means that women are placed in these terrible positions where they have to fend for themselves, beg for scraps of information, go to people who may or may not know what they're doing, put their own lives at risk. And so this movie really sort of vividly reminds you of what those times are like and why we can't go back to those. and it's one of a wave of films that we're going to be seeing this year. At Sundance this year, there was a documentary and a narrative film that both played about the Janes, which was this group of women in Chicago that was this sort of informal network of referrals that sort of helped women out and tried to get them to see doctors who would be willing to perform the procedure. But yeah, I mean, this is horrifying, and this movie does not hold back on what that looks like and what the real ramifications are, and how, you know, this is not something that you can be debated on a purely sort of like ideological sense. It ultimately comes down to real women in real danger, and whose lives are at stake by these, the patriarchy is the villain in this movie, and that's where these laws come from.
Right. And that's what makes what is happening with this decision, if indeed that is truly what they're going to say at the Supreme Court about Roe versus Wade, that makes it so terrifying, because like little by little it's being chipped away at for the last several years. And that's a lot of why evangelicals were able to like look the other way at who Trump actually is and was, because they were able to get justices in who would do their bidding to end abortion. And that's like, that was all they cared about. And so now that has come to finally pass. And yeah, it's horrifying. And there are protests in my little neighborhood down the street here, my little quiet town. And I hope that does some good, but like it makes you feel helpless. Like when you see that the vast majority of Americans are in favor of, the woman's right to do with her body as she sees fit. Like, what are we doing here? How can we fix this? How can we change it? We can't.
No,
I feel helpless.
Look, and I think sometimes it takes this kind of thing to really rally people who would just assume that it's not going to happen. I'm glad that whoever leaked it, despite all the sort of pearl clutching we're seeing about it in certain corners. And if that's what it takes to make people go, oh no, this is really a thing, they could really take this away, then let's operate with that fear in mind and push back.
Indeed. So Happening speaks to that fear.
Yes.
In ways that are understated, but also harrowing
and visceral.
Yes. And so it's playing in New York and LA starting this weekend. It is going to be expanding nationwide near you. Again,
next Friday.
Yes. If it sounds like a movie that you're dreading seeing, please give it a chance. Please, because it's extraordinarily well made. I'm saying 9. What is your number?
I said 8. Yeah, it's a powerful film. People should check it out. Even though it will make you uncomfortable, and it's supposed to, and it's doing it really well. But it's an important movie.
Indeed.